I remember visiting my old friend Tom a few years ago. He was sitting on his front porch, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across his face. In his hands, he held a faded, tattered photograph, two boys, arms around each other, their faces frozen in laughter. I watched as his fingers traced the edges, his eyes distant. "My brother and I," he murmured. "We were inseparable once. Then life happened. Arguments, stubborn pride, we stopped talking." He exhaled slowly, his voice cracking. "I always thought there'd be time to fix it. But now, he's gone." He turned to me, his eyes filled with sorrow. "You know the worst part? I don't even remember what we fought about." His words hit me like a wave. How many of us are carrying regrets, unspoken words, or burdens from the past that steal our peace? How much lighter would life feel if we finally let go? Today, I want to talk about releasing the things that weigh us down, not just the clutter in our homes, but the clutter in our hearts. Because after 70, life should not feel heavy. It should feel free, light, and deeply fulfilling. And that choice, my friends, is ours to make. Before we begin, I'd really appreciate it if you like this video. It helps me keep sharing more important lessons. If you haven't subscribed yet, I highly recommend hitting the subscribe button and turning on the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. Also, if you enjoy this video, please comment 1. If you don't, comment 0 so I know how to improve. Now, let's get started. 1. Letting go of the need for approval. For most of our lives, we are taught, directly or indirectly, that our worth is tied to how much we are liked, how much we are accepted, and how much we fit into the expectations of others. From childhood, we learn to seek approval, first from parents, then teachers, friends, co-workers, and society at large. We dress a certain way, speak carefully, and hold back opinions, all to avoid judgment. We say yes when we want to say no, we shrink ourselves to make others comfortable, and we convince ourselves that keeping the peace is more important than being true to ourselves. But here's the truth, no matter how much effort you put into pleasing others, someone will always disapprove. Someone will judge you, misunderstand you, or criticize your choices. And after 70, the burden of carrying that weight is no longer necessary. You have lived too long, experienced too much, and come too far to keep adjusting yourself for the comfort of others. I once knew a woman named Eleanor, who spent most of her life playing the role that others expected of her. She was the dependable daughter, the devoted wife, the self-sacrificing mother, the friend who always said yes. But deep down, there were things she wanted to say, dreams she wanted to pursue, and boundaries she longed to set. When she turned 75, she finally had an awakening. "I've spent my entire life making sure everyone else was happy," she told me. "I think it's time to ask, what do I want?" And for the first time, she started living for herself. She let go of the pressure to please. She spoke her mind. She said no without guilt. And do you know what happened? She felt free. When Eleanor stopped living for others and started living for herself, something incredible happened. At first, there was resistance. People who had benefited from her constant compliance didn't like the change. Some were offended when she declined their requests. Others called her selfish. But instead of feeling guilty, she felt liberated. For the first time in my life, she told me, I wake up and ask myself, what do I want to do today? And then I actually do it. She picked up hobbies she had once abandoned, reconnected with old friends who truly appreciated her, and found peace in her own company. She discovered that living authentically didn't mean pushing people away. It meant attracting the right ones, the ones who valued her for who she truly was. So many of us spend our lives trying to be everything to everyone, but in the process, we lose ourselves. And after 70, the greatest gift you can give yourself is the permission to be who you are, without apology. If you have an opinion, speak it. If something doesn't bring you joy, walk away. If a relationship drains you, set boundaries. You are not here to be molded by the expectations of others. You are here to live freely, honestly, and without the constant weight of wondering what others will think. Because at the end of the day, the only person you truly need approval from is yourself. So let go of the need to be liked, and instead, focus on being free. Free to be bold, to be honest, to be exactly who you are. Because that is where true peace begins. If you're still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment below to let me know you're still here with me. Thank you for taking the time to watch. 2. Releasing regret. Regret is a heavy chain that drags the past into the present, stealing the peace that should belong to us. By the time we reach 70, we have lived through moments of joy, love, and triumph, but also moments of mistakes, missed opportunities, and words we wish we had said differently. It's natural to look back and wonder, what if? What if I had taken that chance? What if I had been more patient? What if I had chosen differently? These thoughts creep into our minds late at night, replaying old conversations, rewriting past decisions, and making us prisoners of a time we can never return to. I once met a man named Charles who had carried a regret for over 40 years. He had a falling out with his son when the boy was in his 20s. Harsh words were spoken in anger, and pride got in the way of reconciliation. I thought there would always be time, Charles told me, his voice heavy with sorrow. But life moved forward. His son built a family of his own, and the distance between them grew wider. When Charles finally gathered the courage to reach out, it was too late. His son had passed unexpectedly, and the chance to mend their relationship was gone. I would give anything, Charles whispered, for just one more conversation. His story broke my heart because I knew how many people were carrying similar burdens, walking through life with the weight of unsaid apologies and unresolved wounds. But here's what I have learned: regret does not change the past. No amount of wishing, no amount of self-recrimination will rewrite history. But what we can do, what we must do, is learn how to let go, to forgive, and to find peace in the time we still have. Forgiveness is the only thing that can lift the weight of regret. Not just forgiving others, but forgiving ourselves. We are often our harshest critics, replaying our mistakes over and over, punishing ourselves for things we can no longer change. But tell me, if a dear friend came to you, burdened with regret, would you condemn them? Or would you take their hands and say, "You did the best you could with what you knew at the time"? If we can offer grace to others, why do we withhold it from ourselves? Charles eventually found peace, not because he could change the past, but because he chose to honor his son's memory in a new way. He started writing letters, not just to his son, but to himself. Letters of apology, letters of love, letters of all the things he wished he had said. He knew his son would never read them, but that wasn't the point. The point was to release the pain he had carried for too long. And in doing so, he found a kind of closure, a way to make peace with himself. If you are holding on to regret, whether for something you did, something you failed to do, or a relationship left unresolved, ask yourself, what purpose does this regret serve? Regret does not fix the past. It does not heal old wounds. But forgiveness? Forgiveness is freedom. If you can still mend something, do it now. If you cannot, then choose to let it go. You deserve peace. You deserve to move forward unburdened. The past is a story already written, but the final chapters are still in your hands. And you have the power to make them lighter, freer, and filled with grace. If you're still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment 3 below to let me know you're still here with me. Thank you for your valuable time. 3. Cutting ties with toxic relationships. We don't always notice it at first, but some relationships take more from us than they give. They drain our energy, bring unnecessary stress, and leave us feeling exhausted rather than uplifted. By the time we reach 70, we've spent decades building relationships with family, friends, neighbors, and acquaintances. But not all relationships are meant to last forever. Some connections, no matter how long they've existed, bring more harm than good. And yet, many of us hold onto them out of obligation, out of guilt, or out of fear of being alone. I once knew a woman named Margaret who spent years feeling weighed down by an old friend. This friend had been part of her life for nearly 50 years, but every conversation was filled with negativity. She complained about everything, gossiped about others, and never once asked how Margaret was doing. After every visit, Margaret felt drained, but she convinced herself that because they had history, she had to maintain the friendship. "She's been in my life for so long," Margaret would say. "I can't just walk away." But one day, Margaret realized something. Just because a relationship has lasted a long time does not mean it deserves to last forever. Some people thrive on conflict. Some make you feel guilty for their unhappiness. Some take and take but never give. And others expect you to always be available, even though they wouldn't do the same for you. If a relationship brings only stress, resentment, or exhaustion, ask yourself, what am I really holding on to? A memory? A sense of duty? A fear of disappointing someone? If maintaining a relationship costs you your peace, then the price is too high. When Margaret finally made the decision to distance herself from that toxic friendship, she expected to feel guilt. Instead, she felt relief. She realized how much time she had wasted listening to complaints, absorbing negativity, and carrying the emotional weight of a friendship that had long stopped being mutual. "It's strange," she told me, "but the silence that came after was peaceful, not lonely." Many of us believe that letting go of toxic relationships is an act of cruelty, but in reality, it is an act of self-respect. We have been conditioned to believe that we must always be available, that we must tolerate bad behavior because that's just how they are. But we are not responsible for fixing people who refuse to change. We are not obligated to hold on to relationships that make us feel small, drained, or unappreciated. Some will argue, but they're family. But family is more than blood. It is the people who love and support you, who bring you joy and not pain. Others will say, "But I don't want to be alone." But true loneliness is not the absence of people, it is being surrounded by the wrong ones. When you let go of toxic relationships, you make space for something better. You open your heart to new friendships, deeper connections, and the quiet joy of choosing your own peace. So ask yourself, who in your life brings you joy? Who truly cares for you? Who respects you? Those are the relationships worth nurturing. The rest? Let them go. At this stage in life, every moment is precious. Choose peace. Choose happiness. Choose you. If you're still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, Please comment 4 below to let me know you're still here with me. Thank you for your valuable time. 4. Embracing change. There's a belief that after a certain age, change is no longer possible, that by 70 or beyond, we are set in our ways, too old to learn, too old to try something new, too old to start again. But that is not the truth. The truth is, as long as you are breathing, you are capable of growth, of discovery, of transformation. Life is not a straight road with a sudden dead end. It is a continuous journey, and it is never too late to take a new path. I once met a man named Robert who had spent his whole life as a businessman. When he retired at 72, he felt lost. "Who am I if I'm not working?" he asked. He spent months feeling like his best years were behind him, like he had nothing left to contribute. Then one day, he saw an ad for a local community class in photography, something he had always admired but never pursued. On a whim, he signed up. At first, he felt out of place among younger students, fumbling with a camera, making mistakes. But slowly, something shifted. He fell in love with capturing moments, with learning light and shadows, with seeing the world through a different lens, literally and figuratively. And at 75, Robert held his first gallery showing. We often tell ourselves, "It's too late." But that is nothing more than fear in disguise. The fear of looking foolish, of struggling, of stepping outside of what is comfortable. But comfort is not the same as happiness. The moment we believe we are too old to change, we stop truly living. Robert's story is not unique. Time and again, I have seen people bloom in the later years of their lives simply because they allowed themselves to try. A woman I once knew, Linda, had spent decades believing she had no artistic talent. Then, at 76, she picked up a paintbrush for the first time. "I was terrible at it," she laughed, "but for the first time in years, I felt excited to wake up in the morning." She kept at it, learning and improving, and at 80, she gifted each of her grandchildren a painting of their childhood home. Not because she had become a world-famous artist, but because she had found joy in something new. Change does not have to be something grand. It does not mean uprooting your life or chasing something impossible. It can be small but meaningful, learning a skill, forming a new friendship, breaking an old habit, traveling somewhere you've never been, even changing the way you think about yourself. It means waking up and saying, "What if I tried?" instead of "It's too late." What if you finally started writing that book you always thought about? What if you took up dancing, joined a book club, or learned how to use new technology to connect with loved ones? What if, instead of seeing aging as an end, you saw it as an open door? Because it is. At this stage in life, you are no longer bound by the expectations of others. You are free to explore, to experiment, to grow. Change is not something to fear. It is something to embrace. You are not too old. You are just getting started. 5. Releasing the fear of death. Death is the one certainty we all share, yet it remains the one topic people avoid. We push it aside, pretend it's far away, whisper about it in hushed tones as if speaking of it will bring it closer. But after 70, one day becomes nearer, and the fear of death can begin to cast a long shadow over life. It becomes a quiet, nagging presence in the back of the mind. How much time do I have left? Will I suffer? What happens after I'm gone? This fear steals the joy from the days we still have, turning precious moments into anxious ones. But here's the truth: fearing death does not stop it from coming, it only stops us from living. I once met a woman named Helen, who spent years consumed by her fear of dying. She avoided thinking about it, avoided talking about it, and avoided anything that reminded her of it. But the fear followed her anyway. Then, at 78, she lost her closest friend, and something changed in her. She watched as her friends' family gathered, sharing laughter through their tears, telling stories about the woman they loved. And Helen realized something profound. Her friend had not just left behind memories. She had left behind a life well lived. She wasn't afraid of dying, Helen told me. She was afraid of not truly living. That realization changed everything for her. She stopped worrying about the number of days she had left and started focusing on making those days meaningful. Death is inevitable, but how we spend our time before it is still in our hands. We can either live in fear of the end, or we can embrace each moment with purpose, gratitude, and love. Helen made a decision that day to stop running from death and start running toward life. She reached out to old friends she hadn't spoken to in years. She started journaling, writing down her life stories so her grandchildren would know who she truly was. She took walks in the morning and paid attention to the little things, the way the birds sang, the way the wind felt against her skin. And for the first time in years, she felt free. The truth is, fearing death is really just fearing the unknown. What happens after we leave this world? None of us can say for certain. But what we do know is that we are still here. And if we are here, we have a choice. We can let the fear of dying steal the joy of living, or we can embrace each day fully, without hesitation. Think of it this way. If today was your last day, how would you spend it? Would you waste it worrying? Or would you call someone you love and tell them how much they mean to you? Would you sit in regret? Or would you soak in the warmth of the sun, take a deep breath, and simply be present? The greatest peace comes not from ignoring death, but from accepting it as part of life. It is not the enemy, it is simply the final chapter. And instead of dreading when that chapter will come, why not make sure the pages before it are filled with laughter, love, and moments that make your heart swell with joy? Let go of fear. Live fully. And when the time comes, may you meet the end with no regrets, only the satisfaction of a life well lived. Remember my friend Tom, the man who held that old, tattered photo of his brother? He spent years carrying the weight of regret, wishing for a moment he could never get back. But what struck me most about Tom wasn't just his sorrow, it was the realization that so many of us live this way. We hold on to things that no longer serve us. We carry burdens that should have been set down long ago. We worry about what others think, we dwell on past mistakes, we tolerate relationships that drain us, and we live in fear of an end we cannot stop. And in doing so, we miss the very thing we are here to experience, life itself. But what if we chose differently? What if, instead of looking back with regret, we looked forward with purpose? What if we stopped measuring our worth by the approval of others and started living for ourselves? What if we let go of toxic relationships, of the need to please, of the belief that change is no longer possible? What if we embraced each day, not with fear of its end, but with gratitude for its existence? There comes a time in life when we must decide, do we continue carrying what weighs us down, or do we finally set ourselves free? This is the moment to make that choice. To release the past, to embrace the present, and to step forward into the years ahead, not burdened, not afraid, but light, open, and fully alive. Imagine what life could feel like without the weight of regret, the need for approval, or the fear of what's to come. Imagine waking up each morning, not burdened by yesterday's mistakes or tomorrow's uncertainties, but simply grateful for today. Because today is what we have. Not the past, not the future, just this moment, right here, right now. And what a gift that is. I think of Helen, the woman who spent years fearing death until she realized that fear was robbing her of the time she still had. When she let go of that fear, she started living in a way she never had before, with presence, with purpose, with peace. And that's what I wish for each of you, not just to exist, not just to count the days, but to make the days count. If there is one thing I hope you take away from today, it is this: you are still here. You are still breathing, still capable of love, of laughter, of learning, of growing. Your story is not over. You still have time to let go of what no longer serves you and to embrace what truly matters. So, as you leave here today, ask yourself, what will I let go of? What will I embrace? And most importantly, how will I choose to live? Because at the end of the road, when we look back on our lives, we won't care about the opinions we tried to please, the grudges we held, or the fears that kept us small. We will care about the love we shared, the moments that took our breath away, and the peace we felt from knowing that we truly lived. Thank you for following us till the end. Don't forget to show some love by clicking the like button and subscribe. This supports the channel and allows me to continue creating content for you. Leave your thoughts or comments below. Feel free to express yourself and stay positive. See you next time. Have you ever wondered what it truly takes to live a fulfilling life well into your 60s, 70s, and even 80s? Not just existing, but thriving. Waking up every morning feeling energized, clear-headed, and excited for the day ahead. Imagine moving with ease, keeping up with your favorite activities, and never feeling like life is passing you by. A few years ago, I met a man who completely changed the way I thought about aging. His name was Robert, and he was 78 years old. I was sitting on a park bench, enjoying my morning coffee, when I noticed him, jogging. Yes, jogging. Not shuffling, not limping. He was running with energy and confidence, like someone decades younger. I couldn't help but be curious. As he slowed down and stopped near me to stretch, I struck up a conversation. "Sir," I said, "I have to ask, what's your secret? How do you have this much energy at 78? He chuckled and wiped the sweat from his forehead. "It's no secret," he said. "It's habits." He went on to tell me about his daily routine, how he moves his body every day, whether it's running, swimming, or simply taking long walks. How he fuels himself with real food instead of processed junk. How he reads a new book every month to keep his mind sharp. How he spends time with friends and family, making sure he stays connected and never isolates himself. Then he said something that stuck with me. People don't get old because of their age. They get old because they stop doing the things that keep them young. That hit me hard. Because I knew people his age who had accepted defeat, who believed that aches, pains, and loneliness were just part of getting older. People who spent their days in front of the TV, letting life pass them by. The difference wasn't luck. It was habits. Robert's story wasn't about being extraordinary. He didn't have elite genetics, nor was he a retired athlete. He was just a man who made a choice to take control of his life and refuse to let age define what he could or couldn't do. And that's the lesson I want to share with you today. Your future isn't decided by your age, it's decided by your actions. You can either let time dictate your life, or you can take charge and build a future where you wake up every day feeling strong, sharp, and full of purpose. So ask yourself, do you want to grow